Okay, welcome back. We are at shul.com and we are reviewing the virtual Halacha program, and we are on page 6. Let's continue our discussion. We're discussing Halacha from Sinai, Moshe Rabbeinu, how it came till today, and we're looking at Haktamat Harambam. Ubizman hazeh, and in our time, Tokfo hatzarot yeterot. There's been a lot of troubles. B'dachaka sha'a, et hakol va'avedat chokhmat chachamenu ubinat nevonenu nistera. What happened? Over the course of being in Galut and going from place to place, we lost knowledge and we lost bina, and a lot of what our Chachamim knew slowly dissipated. Why? When a person moves from a country to country and is a new language and he has to have a new parnasah, suddenly his stronghold starts to weaken, and the Chachamim were worried about this. לפיכך, אותם הפירושים וההלכות והתשובות שחיברו הגאונים וראו שהם דברים מבוארים נתקשו בימינו. And things that were just a few 400 or 500 years ago were rock solid, everybody knew and understood. Now today suddenly it's becoming, what was it again? What was the halacha? I'm not sure, I don't remember. Did he do it this way or that way? And suddenly it starts to break down. And we don't understand the inyanim, the things. And the topics, karaui ela me'at b'mispar, just very little bit. Ve'en tzarich lomar ha'gemara atzma ha'bablit va'yushalmit b'sifra, b'sifri, v'atosefta, shem tzrichim da'at rechava v'nefesh chachma b'zman aruch, v'achar kach yodea mehem ha'derech ha'nechocha b'dvarim ha'asurim ha'motrim she'ar dinei ha'torah he'achu. And he says here, and we don't have to say that the Gemara, or the Bavli, Yerushalmi, and all those books, that they need a lot of da'at and rechava, v'nefesh chokhmah v'zman aruch, v'achar kach yodea mehem. Meaning you could read them and learn them and deduce from them. ומפני זה נערתי חצני אני משה בן מימון הספרדי ונשענתי על הצור ברוך הוא. So he says, you mean a person could look at all these books and he could really learn them and get the bottom lines on them. But if I were to tell you, Mark, what's the halacha on Hilchot Shabbat of carrying in a Carmelit? So right away you have to identify where is that located in Masechet Shabbat. You have to look at all the opinions. You got to look at the Ran. You got to look back and forth. And suddenly, you can figure it out, but it's a little bit. It's work. And Mishanti Halasud, and Rambam tells us he went onto the rock, the stone. Baruchu Hatzur is talking about God. It's the Sud. Ubinoti bechol elu hasfarim. And I looked into all these books, and I wanted to make something that was easy to understand. I just want to tell everyone, mutar, asur, kosher, not kosher, good, bad, just to settle it down, because also in the time of Harambam, there were still problems going on, and Klal Yisrael was going through a lot of different issues. Everything in a clear way and in a short way. Two very important things about learning that it's brought down in the Mishnah Avot. Always when you teach, you're supposed to teach with the fewest words possible. It's interesting. So, and interesting thing about Harambam, we're going to be reading a lot of Harambam, B'ezrat Hashem, but Harambam wrote in a beautiful Lashon HaKodesh, and easy, compared to the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is a difficult Hebrew. Of course you can get through it, but it needs a level 2 Shulchan Aruch. A regular person who understands Hebrew, he can read Harambam and he can understand it. He really did such a clear job on it. So he says, until all of the Torah Sheba'al Peh should be in the mouth of everyone. No misunderstanding, no breaking things apart, everything will be understood. It's easy. Not that this person says this and that person says that, and it becomes always constant arguments. Things that are clear, close to you, and nachon, they're right. Al pi hamishpat, according to the law and the judgment, asher yitba'er mikol elu hachiburim va'pirushim hanimsaim mimot Rabbeinu HaKadosh v'ad achshav. He says, I'm going to do everything and I'm going to clear up everything from the time of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, until now. I'm going to make it easy. Achiyu kol hadinim, all of the laws, gilwin. They're going to be openly available and visible. The katan v'legadol, the small and the big. Bedin kol mitzvah u'mitzvah u'bedin kol hadevarim shetiknu chachamim and according to whatever all the chachamim and nevi'im did. כללו של דבר כדי שלא יהיה האדם צריך לחיבור אחר בעולם בדין מדיני ישראל. Wow. He said, you will never need another book outside of the book that I'm putting together right now. And interestingly enough, there has never been an author that has come and done what he did. And that's why we refer to Harambam as a Nesher HaGadol. Now people think Nesher is the eagle. The right definition of a Nesher is actually a vulture. He was the vulture. He pretty much ate everything in the pathway. And he not only did it where it has never, no one has even come close to what he did. In fact, if the Mashiach were to arrive today, we're using Harambam. Nobody else went through all the halachot of Mashiach, Binyan, Bet HaBechira. I remember when I was on a committee once and we worked on a project of a renovation of a shul, and they gave everybody the Bet HaBechira they gave Harambam, Bet HaBechira, all the halachot of building the Bet HaMikdash. That was like one of the things. Because nobody else wrote from it. Nobody. I mean, if you want to know today how the Bet HaMikdash should be, we can only look at Harambam. Now, of course, we can look at the Nevi'im, Yeshaya, Yehezkel, but that's not halacha pesuka. You're going to look at pesukim, you're going to have to figure out things. Here, he gave it to you easy. He gave you hilchot avadim. Let's say a person wants to have a slave. Obviously not a slave the way we understand today, but a servant or something of that nature, eved ivdi. He gave you the halachot. What are you supposed to do? Otherwise, you're going to have to look at the Humash, look at the Mefarshim, go to the Gemariyot.
Hanaruk doesn't touch it.
He doesn't touch anything that was not applicable for the day. If it wasn't applicable, if it wasn't something that actively was a halacha, he didn't touch it. He doesn't talk about techelet at all. There's a lot of things that he doesn't touch because he only did things that were pertinent to the time.
Right.
And okay, we'll continue with it. It's going to have everything inside. Im hatakanot, v'haminhagot, all the tikkunim, the customs, v'hagezerot, all the extra gates that they put. Everything from Moshe until the Gemara. Now Harambam lived right after the Geonim. He was the period right after. He's the Rishonim from there, almost like a quasi period, but he kind of like went over. So he was only a couple of hundred years. It was like 200 years from the Geonim. Why do I say this is important? Is that when he decided to put together this piece, he was very close to the Geonim. He was very close to the Geonim. He was right at that time. So it's what it's like. It's like me, the Havdil, me saying the Ben Ish Hai. The Ben Ish Hai was 110 years ago. It wasn't a long time ago. There were people. My great grandfather was in Baghdad at the time of the Ben Ish Hai. Great Tabel. So meaning we have a connection. And if you tell me 1800, okay. You tell me, let's say the Gaon of Vilna was in the late 1700s. Okay, so we have another 3 generations. We still have his handwritten text. We still have books from him. Okay, let's continue. Now, interestingly, he called it Mishneh Torah, but there's another book called Mishneh Torah. What's the other book called Mishneh Torah? Sefer Devarim. And interestingly enough, nobody calls Harambam Mishneh Torah. It's brought down. Rav Musafi, I believe, spoke about it. He said that a few people tried to name their Sfarim like Mishneh Torah, and it never took hold. He has the name Harambam, he has Yad HaChazakah, and he has different other names, but the name of Mishneh Torah never stuck. That's why today you ever see a rabbi get up Mishneh Torah. What is this? It tells you Harambam, it tells you Yad HaChazakah. It says because he named something of the Torah, and it just didn't catch. Rav Musafi spoke about this in depth. He said there was a few others that did it too, that it didn't catch. By the way, interestingly enough, not only did he say he's going to do it, because he wrote this Hakdama, I'm assuming after the fact. I don't know if he wrote this before. I'm assuming that he might have wrote this after, but he went and did it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 10-year project, this thing. I'm not 100% sure, but it took him years to do it. Let's look at Hasagat Ra'avad here. There was 3 Ra'avads, by the way. So if you see Ra'avad, remember there's 3 of them. They all had the same acronym Ra'avad. V'yodea mimenu אי אפשר סבר לתקן ולא תיקן כי הוא עזב דרך כל המחברים אשר היו לפניו כי הם הביאו ראיה לדבריהם וכתבו הדברים בשם אומרים והיה לו בזה תועלת גדולה כי פעמים רבות יעלה על לב הדיין לאסור או להתיר בראייתו ממקום אחד ואילו ידע כי יש גדול ממנו הפליג שמועתו לדעת אחרת היה חוזר בו. He said that prior to Harambam, it seems there were a lot of different mechaberim. So people would bring proofs from whatever they had access to. But it could have been if there was a bigger rabbi that something else came along, he would have taken that, but he didn't have access to it because things were all over. Now, lo eda lama achzor מקבלתי ומראייתי בשביל חיבורו של זה המכבד. אם חולק עליי גדול ממני הרי טוב. If he's bigger than me and he argues with me, good. ואם אני גדול ממנו, למה אבטל דעתי מפני דעתו? And if I'm bigger than him, why should I give my דעת to him? ועוד, כי יש דברים שהגאונים חולקים זה על זה. He said another thing, there were even things in the גאונים that they argued on them. וזה המכבד, בירר דברי האחד, וכתבם בחיבורו, ולמה אסמוך אני על ברירתו, והיא לא נראית בעיניי, ולא אדע החולק עמו, אם הוא ראוי לחלוק אם לא. אין זה אלא כל קיבל די רות יתרה ב. די רווח יתרה ב. So what is he saying here? It seems that the Ravad was arguing a little bit on the Hakdama. That's what I'm understanding. Because he's kind of saying Rambam kind of set the tone that I am the standard, and this is it, and there's no other opinions when there are other opinions. And he's saying, what if my adat is, maybe I have something I can prove better? Why is it this should be the standard for everybody in Klal Yisrael? So that's what I'm understanding from the Ravad, that he seemingly had some
when
question.
I was listening to the rabbi, he basically said that the Rambam didn't have any sources.
The Rambam?
Nothing he wrote had sources.
Oh no! So very good. So I'm gonna explain this.
Like the guy, great, but you have no sources. So how can we?
Okay, so Rabbi Mansour spoke about this when we learned. I remember learning this years ago. He spoke about this. He said that Rambam originally wrote the Sfarim without the sources, and then when he had completed it, he had wanted to go back and put the sources, but it was just too difficult. It was just too difficult, and that was something. It's a big thing. That's why.
Because now the Rabbad, from my understanding, from the YouTube that I saw.
Same thing. He's saying that you're right. This was one of the reasons. Because he said, by the way, that's why if you notice, one thing I do in my learning, and that we're doing here, is we sourcing out things. And by the way, and when we don't have a source, we say, this is what we're doing. We don't have a source. If someone has a source, bring it up.
Right.
Because, humans are fallible. Humans are not perfect. So when we're able to go back to a source and discuss it openly and say, okay, so why are we doing it this way? Let's look at this, let's look at that. We're able to sharpen our knowledge. But the moment that we just say, okay, this is what it is, and or someone gets up and says it, it's a big dent in Klal Yisrael. Because Klal Yisrael was always about different ideas. It was always about that. But we have to always be able to source back and say, where did this come from? Was there someone before us that was a Rav Avayir or had some basis in Sfarim to come up with this conclusion? Let's look at Igeret Rabbeinu Shirira Gaon. He was one of the Geonim. He lived a couple of hundred years before Harambam. V'kama dehava bet hamikdash kayem kol echad v'echad meributa hava megamed lehu letalmideh. He says that from the time of the Bet HaMikdash, everyone would have a rabbi and they would have their students, Ta'ameh de Oraita, and he would give them the Ta'amim, the reasons of the Torah, Ud Mishnah, and the Mishnah, the Talmud, Ubimile de Mechabed Lahon B'Sha'ateh, Umoro le Talmidaihu ki hechi de Hazu. The Talmidim would only go to their teachers. V'hava nafishe chokhmah, ve'lo habet tzrichim letincha acharini. And he goes, they would only go to their rabbi, and they wouldn't have to do a lot of tircha, a lot of work, and whatever he teaches me, I'm carrying it, I'm taking it. Let's see what he highlights here. Kevan, the Charab Bet HaMikdash, va'azlu le Betar. When the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, what happened? All the Jews ran to Betar. Who was there? Rabbi Elazar Hamudai. Rabbi Elazar Hamudai, he was the chief rabbi, one of the chief rabbis there in Betar. And who was his nephew? Bar Kochva. Bar Kochva was his nephew. Happens to be Bar Koziba. Bar Koziba ended up killing his uncle, and then the Romans took down the whole city. But what happened when they ran the Beit HaMikdash, they ran for 50 years. I think it was 50 plus years they were in Beitar, and the Romans couldn't get them. They kept their stronghold in Beitar after the Beit HaMikdash, so they were still strong with the rabbis, the yeshivot. V'cherev nami Beitar, v'charav nami Beitar. They destroyed also Beitar. Ve'itbadedu rabbanan lekol tzad. And suddenly the rabbis started to go to all direction. Mishum hanach mehomot. Bishmadim, Bishibushim, and suddenly things started to get confusing. There was destructions, there was mistakes. Shahayu be'otazman lo shimshu talmidim kol tzorkam benafishu machloket. The talmidim were not focused on their rabbis, and then therefore a lot of machlokot came. Let's turn the page. This is page 8. So he says here now, B'kashid mit. This is in the Hakdama.
of the same guy? Or
No, this looks different. This is a different piece. Let's take a look at.
Look at the front.
Let's look at the front. What he says. This is the Tur. We're looking at the Tur on the Hakdama. So let's look at that. So he says here, "B'kashid metu kol hachachamim," when all the Hachamim passed away. Huh? The Tur. Oh, the Tur is Rabbeinu Yaakov Bal Turim. He was the son of the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher ben Yechiel, I think that's the Rosh. So you had the Rosh, then you had the Baal HaTurim. The Baal HaTurim wrote 4 different volumes of Halacha, and the Shulchan Aruch is based on the Tur. He used the same function, the same division. Of the books. Ora Hayim, Choshen Mishpat, Even Ha'ezer, Yoreh De'ah. He took it. That was the Tur's established work, and then the Shulchan Aruch used that form. That was it to create the Shulchan Aruch. He used the same thing that's there. Okay, when all the rabbis passed away, remember I told you that Ravina and Asher, they were the ones who finished the Gemara. They put it together. And the Talmud was already closed. This is talking about the Talmud Bavli, because Talmud Yerushalmi was done by Rabbi Yohanan. It was a different rabbi completely. So this was done in Bavel, the other one. But
how come we don't learn Yerushalmi? When I say
I think it's just a matter of the teachers not having it in curriculum. The art scroll, since they did it, more people are learning. I think that's really what it is. There were also the Bavli was also more thorough. There were more rabbis that were involved in the Bavli. It's bigger. And that's usually what it is. And so today, what we're really doing is we're just looking to understand the words that were already written. No one's really coming up with anything new at this time. Alav and the Hosif umimenu and the Groa. We're not adding. We're not taking away. Therefore, the Geonim wrote a lot of different pirushim and commentary. אבל לפי ידיעתנו לא יכול אף אחד מהם להשלים פירוש כל התלמוד. אבל לפי ידיעתנו לא יכול אף אחד מהם להשלים פירוש כל התלמוד. לחיים טובים ושלום. But according to our knowledge, nobody can finish the pirush of כל התלמוד. He says, אבל לפי ידיעתנו, according to our knowledge, לא יכול אף אחד מהם להשלים פירוש כל התלמוד. They can't all finish it. יש שמנעו כוסר החיים, ויש שמנעתו תרדת בני אדם במשפטיהם. Amen. וכן חיברו חיבורים בפסקי הלכות מהם בערבית ומהם בעברית. And he says that from all the Gemara that was done, they wrote different pirushim in Arabic and in Hebrew. By the way, Harambam wrote a lot of things in Arabic that was translated. Many mifarshim were written in Arabic because that was the language of the tongue. Now, before Arabic, what they speak? They spoke Aramaic. It happens to be in Iraq today, there are still groups of people that speak Aramite. Yeah, we met a few of them. They came to my dad's store in Manhattan on 6th Avenue. He saw that we were Jewish. So my dad was Jewish, and he said to them, I think they were Christian. They're not Muslim. And he said that he said we know that you Jews still speak the language we speak, Aramaic, because it's supposed to be like a dying language, but it's not, because we're still using it very heavily. And he knew like words in Aramite, and it was not even Jewish. But you should know that Aramite was not written in Hebrew letters. We write the Aramite in Hebrew letters.
Aramite is in Arabic letters?
It was a different letters that we have. I don't know which letters, but it wasn't. It's kind of like writing in English Hebrew words.
Right.
That's the same thing of it. So kegon halachot gedolot v'halachot ketuot. So they wrote all different types of halachot, v'halachot pesukot, v'halachot rab'acha, meshabecha bezulatam. V'halachot she'asa harab hagadol Rabbeinu Yitzhak, דרי, הספיקו במקום כולם. אוקיי, לפי שהם כוללים כל תועדיות הפסקים והמשפטים הנצחים בזמננו, זה כלומר זמן הגלות. So he says, דרי, Rabbi Yitzhak, he is the one who kind of put together a lot of the kolelim, all of the halachot and everything, that made it easier. Let's review it again. הספיקו במקום כולם, לפי שהם כוללים כל תועדיות הפסקים והמשפטים. He put together something that was organized for everybody to use.
He was when? He was before or after?
So the Tur was right around the Rambam. Right around the Rambam. Yeah. He was there, I think the year 1000. I don't have my computer with me here, but I think it's about the same time. You had the Rosh you had Rambam and Rashi. I think they were all within the same time zone, maybe within 100 years. It's not, they weren't spread apart a lot. Okay, now we're looking at the Bet HaBechira.
And the Talmud was compiled when?
Talmud was from the year about, the Talmud individuals were from before the Bet HaMikdash, but it was compiled the year 2 to 400, around that time. That's when I read one of the Jewish history books. We're going now through Dorot HaKatzer at night, and we're going through that. It's so interesting. There's even mahlokot on the timelines. Go figure. Okay, now we're on page 9. Page 9 is the Bet Yosef. It's the Hakdama. And let's take a look. Bet HaBechira. Okay, let's take a look here. All these authors, כתבו חיבוריהם בלשון התלמוד ובזכירת המחלוקת והודעת הספק בטענות וראיות לפעמים. It says most of the people that wrote books, what they did is they wrote in the language of the Talmud. They used the same terminology, and they just reminded everybody of the mahloket, what were the safekot, and then they gave over the bottom line. Baharav more sedek hadash b'chiboro tichunot acherot v'zeh shehu עליו השלום, אחז דרך המחברים לכתוב כל דבר ודבר ביחד, הלכות. He says, this rabbi, Rav Moreh Sedek, Hadash Bechiboро, that's Harambam, he organized all of these things. You see how he put on 135 on the bottom? Yeah. Okay. He calls him Harav Moreh Sedek Hadash. You have to know, like, when Harambam did what he did, it came up with controversy. Because of? A lot of reasons. Because some people claimed, why are you making it so simple for people? They're not going to sit and learn. Everyone had another complaint about him, but at the end of the day, he was kadosh. אבל חדש עליהם לכתוב דבריו דרך קבלה באין הודעת מחלוקת ומשא ומתן. He did his words in a way of Kabbalah with no mahloket and no masa umatan. Meaning, masa umatan is like buying and selling. Meaning, you open the book and you get the halacha. What do you got to do here? Yes, good, do it. And he wrote his language in the words of the Mishnah, which is Hebrew. Very easy. Remember I told you he wrote for this time and for even times that he didn't live in. עם כל מה שראה בעין שכלו להוסיף בו מן הירושלמי ומן התוספתא ומשאר מקומות הזרים, עם מה שנתחדש בדברי הגאונים, מעין הודעת מחלוקת ומשא ומתן. Let's see what he's going with this. ומעין הודעת הדברים ההם, איזהו מקומן, עד שיודע הכל הלכות בשלמות. So he's saying he went through a lot of the Sfarim. He definitely went through the Geonim. There's no doubt that Harambam went through all of them when he came up with his Perush, but he didn't write the sources. That was the issue at hand. Okay, Chibur kolel b'shalem alav en lehosif umimenu en ligrowa. He did a full chibur that you don't have to add or subtract anything. It's done perfectly. Lefanav lo haya ken mechubera geonim. And you know what I could say? It says mi lefanav, before him there were none, and I could say that in the future there probably won't be another Harambam ever. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. Nobody did this. Ish al diglo besidur mitukan b'shalem, so perfect kamohu v'acharav lo yeken. He said the same thing. He says it's not happening again. There's nobody ever that's going to do this. Ad kim'at שהייתה הכוונה שלו יסתרך עם ספריו ספר מספרי התלמוד ומחברי הקדמונים, כמו שגילה הרב ז"ל בפתחת ספריו. That's in the Hakdama that we just read. ואילו היה זה לא היה מקום לחבר ספר אחריו על זה הדרך, רצה לומר דרך עדות וקבלה. Let's see read again. ואילו היה זה לא היה מקום לחבר ספר אחריו על זה הדרך. There was no other way to do it. רצה לומר דרך עדות וקבלה. Meaning there's nobody else that will have a testimony and Kabbalah to even put this together. אבל לא ראו חכמי הדורות לעזוב ספרי התלמוד בשום פנים. But even with his book, they never abandoned the Gemara. Even with Harambam, technically, you don't need the Gemara right now. You have all the bottom lines, but they never abandoned it. אבל הסכימה דעת הכל להעלותם על ראש משנתם ולהיותם יסוד ועמוד בכל שאר החיבורים כענפיהם אליהם. And they used him as a main source along with the Talmud. בלא סוף דבר חוכמי הדורות השלמים שגם התלמידים בזאת הכוונה וגם ההמון עם מיעוט גרסתם לא תתקרא דעתם בשום עניין יחם לבבם לדעתו עד שיראו במקום שרשו עם דרכי החקירה בו ואופני החיפוש. Now what's interesting here is that I think the Temanim are one of the only ones who follow Harambam to the T. You know, we have Yossi here, he follows Harambam like to the T. Like we, even today, we don't. Yeah. He's a Rambam guy. He says he's a Rambam guy, but he's his grandfather. Maybe the grandfather was, but like I've pointed out a bunch of halachot to him that are Harambam that are not being done. Like I told him right off the bat, I'm like, all the meat that you have that you buy from that butcher is not kasher according to Harambam, because Harambam had a special method of the meat of putting it in hot water and then cold water. When they don't do this today because it's an extra tircha.
So no one is, even if you are Rambam, no one does it.
There are people that do their own shechita. There are some people that, but I'm saying like most people don't follow Harambam. Right. They may say, yeah, we follow this or that, but for the most part, majority, yeah. But even on the Shulchan Aruch, most people don't. Even the Shulchan Aruch, there's a lot of halachot we don't follow Shulchan Aruch. A lot. The more that I go into the Simanim and we're keeping notes, there's a lot of halachot. I'll give you one good one. Wearing your tzitzit, according to Shulchan Aruch, has to be worn outside of your garment, not underneath. But we don't follow that. We follow the Hidan, the Mikubalim. I'll give you another one. Birkat Netilat Yadayim. He says, make the beracha and then wash your hands. We don't do that. We wash our hands and we do Netilat Yadayim. So there are a lot of them. Okay, now let's look at page 10. It's Hakdamenu Rabbeinu Yaakov Balaturim. This is the Hakdama of the Balaturim.
So this is the tour.
This is the tour now. Yeah.
So we're going. So we had the tour before. We have the tour again.
Yeah, he's going again. Let's take a look at page 10. What he says here. Yeah. Oh, this is.
Before we didn't have the tour. Before we had.
He says page. Oh wait, hold on a second here. No, it says page. Here it says page 10. Let's see.
Page 10 is the tour.
Is the tour? So it's the tour, and the Beta Bechira. Oh, what we just read, that was the Me'idi. Okay, that was fine. The Beta Bechira was the Me'idi. Okay. Now let's take a look. Because of our days in Galut and the weakness that are of the Koach, v'shemam lebenu v'rafu yadenu, and you know our hearts and our hands are weaker, and our eyes got weaker from v'chabdu oznenu, and the ears got heavier. We lost a lot of our tongue, and also words. Things got confused. There was a lot of arguments, a lot of different opinions. There's almost no halacha that there's no argument. There's only one halacha that I know quickly, that's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Halacha beyadua she'esav soneh liYaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Halacha, it's a halacha. There's no arguing on it. It's a pashut.
But that's not a halacha.
It's funny. It's a statement of the Gemara that says halacha.
Oh.
And it says halacha beyadua esav soneh Yaakov. That no, for the rest of history, Esav is going to hate Yaakov no matter what. ואחבר ספר בעניין התפילות והברכות ואסדרם כל דבר ברכתו הראויה לא תחילה בסוף עברנם בעניין שלא ישאר בהם ספק. So he writes the Balaturim that he's going to do something like this also and putting it together. So we read the Balaturim, we read the Bet HaBechira of the Me'idi, we read the Hakdama of the Harambam, we read Rabbi Shira Gaon, we had here page 8 which was the Pirusha Mishnayot of Harambam, and we did the beginning in Eruvin and the Pirkei Avot. So we have a nice base that we did thus far of seeing it. Now he wants to go to the Beit Yosef. Let's read it. Let's take a look. I think we can do it. We can do this one now, and then we'll continue.
I don't think we'll get through all of it, but we'll try.
Yeah, we'll try to do the first time. Ve'im yomar adam. This is now the hakdamat of Morenu Rabbi Yosef Karo. Ve'im yomar adam bechol din sheistarech lachbor shorsho umotzao b'divrei haGemara. And if a person is going to say with every single law that he's going to have to open up the books and find out where it is, umotzio b'divrei Gemara u'memay farshim v'poskim kulam yichaber hadavar alav me'od. It'll be impossible. No one will ever figure anything out. And he goes, you also need to figure out where in the Talmud this is located. There's two issues. First, you got to know where to look. Then once you found where to look, you got to go through the whole thing. It's time consuming. And people got busier. Okay, ve'im bedin haba liyad ha'adam kach b'mi shirotze leda shorshei kol hadinim al buriyam ולהקיף דברי כל החולקים בהם If someone wants to know the bottom line of what he has to do and the shortish of it, כל אחד ואחד מהם על אחת כמה וכמה שיבשר ממנו. שאפילו יעיין בכל דין ודין. Even if he looks at every single law, דברי הגמרא, in the גמרא, והמפרשים, דברי כל הפוסקים, שהוא טורח גדול. It's a tremendous work מאוד. ההשגחה מצויה באדם. People forget. ומה גם בדברים רבי הסתעפות, שמסע יגע להריג חס ושלום. He goes, sometimes he end up doing that work, and there might be even wrong conclusions, or he might forget. Imagine a guy goes through the whole process in order to find out the law, Mark, and then he needs to look up. After a week he needs the law and he forgot. You got to go through the whole process again. Kasamak. The Samak was one of the books he wrote, a book on the mitzvot and different types of halachot. V'ha'egod v'ha'kolbo. באמת שזו דרך קצרה וארוכה, כי מעולם לא יוכל לדעת שום דין כהלכתו. If you use those, you're actually never going to know the full deen, law of the halacha. Let's end it here, and we'll continue Bezrat Hashem tomorrow on this next part. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.